Welcome everyone to our Warrior Goddess Witchy Challenge. Today we're going to talk about magic. What is magic? How to step into magic. And this is the first of 3 webinars that we're doing as part of the Warrior Goddess Witchy Challenge. And as I shared before we started the recording, I'm currently in the JFK airport because my flight from Scotland was delayed yesterday, canceled. It wasn't just delayed, it was canceled. And so this is a definitely in between worlds sort of call. And I'm really, really grateful that it just worked out flight-wise that I was able to join all of you today as we explore this idea of magic and how to bring magic into our everyday lives. So we're going to start with a really brief grounding. And for those of you that are new to the Warrior Goddess world, welcome. So those of you that have never been on a webinar with me before, or that this is the first time that you're connecting in with the Warrior Goddess world, go ahead and put a heart. You can just go down to reactions and click on hearts, so we can see. Hi, so we can wave and love on you. Special. Yay. Good. And for those of you that have been part of the community, or this is your second time doing something, go ahead and do a little celebration, whatever that thing is. I don't even know what that is. It's like a thing. Beautiful. When I was about 19 years old, I had my first real encounter with magic as an adult. So I'd had lots of magical encounters as a child, as I think all of us do. But as an adult, I was a very curious person. And I was at school at UC Davis in Northern California, and was studying at that time feminism. And I heard about this idea of earth-based spirituality. And that got me really curious about what is that. And I went to the library with my friend Autumn, and Autumn and I that summer carried back piles and piles of books from the library about Wicca, European shamanism, earth-based tradition, goddess. And I remember we spent the entire summer reading books and like exclaiming to each other about how excited we were to feel something that felt like it fit with what our beliefs already were. And it wasn't too long after that that I started reading a book called Dreaming Down the Dark by Starhawk. And that was really my first introduction to, and it was a really beautiful deep dive into earth-based spiritual traditions, into Wicca, into this idea of being witchy, of reclaiming our connection to magic. And the definition of magic, one of my favorite ones, is the ability to change consciousness at will. The ability to be so present in our relationship with the elements, air, fire, water, earth, with the seasons, with ourself, with life wherever we are, whether you're in the JFK airport or you are out communing with the oak grove and the birds and the grass beneath your feet, that there's magic present everywhere. We just have to shift our attention. And the first place that I really, really got the power of connecting in that realm was that we were trying to craft our first ritual or ceremony. And we tried to get this woman Starhawk, and if any of you have read any books on earth-based tradition, you've probably heard about Starhawk. She's an incredible author that wrote The Spiral Dance, many, many, many other books. And of course, she was booked. And so somebody in our community said, well, have you met Sunny? And we were like, no, who's Sunny? And they're like, you have to meet Sunny Shine. This is her true name, Sunny Shine. And we said, well, who is she? And they're like, well, she's a solitary witch, so you should probably go meet her. And we said, well, where is she? And they're like, well, she lives on B Street. It's the house you think it is. And we were like, okay, let's go to B Street. So we go walking up and down B Street, and it pretty soon became evident which the house was, because here's the Chamber of Commerce. Here is another very well manicured house next to it. And then in between those two things is this house that is just filled with flowers and like overgrown, and things are over the walkway. And we were both like, this has got to be it. Like, this must be the house they're talking about. And that was when I met my dear friend Sunny, who now goes by Ahau and Shine. And that moment of finding her house and realizing that we had a mentor and a guide that had just happened was one of the first places that I was like, right, there's other forces at work in our lives that direct us where we need to go. That there's an invisible thread that weaves through all of our lives. And I believe not just this lifetime, but also past lives, also between continents, between our ancestors, between the ones that are coming after us, that in between the known real world, there is constant magic at play. And there are threads that are pulling us and connecting us in ways that are beyond what is possible and beyond what we can even dream of. We just need to be willing to see, to connect, and to open. And so that's what we're going to explore today, is this idea of how do we connect with that witchy magic that's inside of all of us? That doesn't need, you don't need to belong to a particular religion or have the right clothing or be in the right place even. It's really about connecting to what's already inside of you and opening into the tools and guidance and support to help clear out the ways that I think all of us have repressed or limited our own magic. Because we don't trust ourselves, because we don't believe in ourselves, but because we've been trained so often to think that the power and the magic is out here, is outside of ourselves, instead of looking inside to find where it already lives, and to realize that that spiritual connection is inherent inside of each of us, is innate, and that it's always talking and whispering and inviting us to reconnect with the magic that's all around us. So one of the things that I shared as part of our Warrior Goddess Witchy Challenge is this idea that we can do things in a very mundane way, or we can do things in a magic way. And to call in magic means to find the feeling sense of magic inside of us, to rediscover that. Because again, when we're children, we're very much connected to that magic already. You can probably think of situations yourself with a kid when you were using your imagination, when you were playing, where you felt that sense of connection, when you felt that sense of the divine, when you felt that sense of belonging, when you knew that there were miracles and possibilities and creations that were beyond what the adults could see. And as we grow up, we're often brought into this world of reality, that things are much more black and white. We're taught that we need to be serious, that we need to be adults, that we need to be really focused on who we're going to become, the mask of who we're supposed to be, rather than nurturing our own intuition, our own creativity, our own sense of joy. Yeah, exactly. The Velveteen Rabbit and being real. Yes. So to bring back that wild witchiness that all of us has, that's also connected to wisdom. I think about these three qualities that I've been writing about for the last year, which is our wild self, our witchy self, and our wise self. that each of those aspects is within us already. We just need to undo what we've piled on top of it, what the religions that we were raised in, what our peers, what our parents, the hurt and the trauma that we all have taken on to some degree. And especially for those of us that were raised in families that were very, very religious, or that had a very strong sense of who you should be, there's a lot to undo. So one of the things about getting back in relationship with our witchy confidence and power, which connects us to our magic automatically, is to remember that you are not broken, that the magic is always there, and that it's a process of remembering who we are and shedding who we are not. So often we come to a healing path thinking that we're somehow broken, or thinking that we need to fix ourselves. And I know when I first started doing this work, I had this idea that I needed to fix myself. And once I fixed myself, then I would be happy, then I could be joyful, then I could do the things I was wanted to do in the world. And again, that's the feeling sense of the magic's out there. I have to fix myself and then I can connect with the magic. The truth is, the magic is inside. And so when we release that old belief that says I have to fix myself, or the magic is outside of me, and we start coming back home to ourselves, we stop abandoning ourselves, we stop comparing ourselves, we stop criticizing ourselves, that act of coming back home to ourselves is a big act. It's a really big act. And that as we find our way back home, the magic starts happening naturally, because it's a natural part of being in body and being connected. So there's a couple places that we're going to explore today, and we'll also open it up for questions. Nice. Love it. All the Pacific Northwest people are like, yay! So, and I have 5 minutes before I need to get up and go for my plane. So, Serena's nodding at me. Yeah, and there will be a replay. I mean, we will send the video out as well. And I'm also doing another webinar tomorrow morning at, I think it's 7 a.m. Pacific. So check your inbox around that as well. And I will be landed in Phoenix and probably sleep deprived, but present. Yay! So 8 a.m. Pacific, great. 11 a.m. Eastern. Thank you, Serena, the keeper of time and logistics. Yay, and magic, lots of magic. So since I have limited time, I want to share one important piece that you can play with today, and then I'm going to pass you on to Serena, who has lots of magic and lots of magic to share with you, is this idea that coming back home to yourself is a journey, that it's not something that's going to happen like that. And coming back into relationship with your magic is also something that is a journey. It's not necessarily going to happen like that, because we have a lot of conditionings that we're releasing, and also because many of us have fear of our power, fear of our magic from things that we've learned from religion or from past lives. There's a lot of trauma that's happened collectively around the world, especially in relationship to women and their power. And so that journey back into relationship with magic, back into our confidence and being centered in ourselves, is a shedding process. And it doesn't have to be linear or logical, but it is going to take time. And just because it takes time doesn't mean there's something wrong, that you're not doing it right. And to reconnect with your magic means that you are willing to take risks, to try new things, to get support, to be held in a circle, to learn tools to help release what is not you, and to help sort energetically what is mine to carry and what is not mine to carry. And again, as we learn what's not ours to carry, the magic starts showing up because there's space. Most of us are too full with thoughts, with self-judgment, with not believing in ourselves, with trying to be something else, so that it's hard for the magic to move through. The more that we empty, the more that magic can move through our lives, the more that the ancestors can connect to us, the more that we can remember our power from the past, the more that we can bring in that magical child energy that we have. So getting back in relationship with your magic is not about striving or fixing, it's about undoing to allow what is already naturally yours to arise. So your task today, and Serena can expand on this, is to start playing with, in little baby areas, calling your magic back, and also getting curious about where have you blocked your intuition, your power, your connection to wonder, your willingness for the miraculous to happen in your life. Where has negative thinking, fear, keeping yourself small, doubting yourself, held you back from your magic? And how can you start calling it back by little things like this? Well, actually, this is a better example because I think this is a fun one. Imagine brushing your teeth in a very mundane way. I just have to brush my teeth. And when you're brushing your teeth, what you're thinking about is, how do I get this over with as quickly as possible so I can go in with my day? Or you're thinking about all the things that you're worried about in your life. What do you guys usually do? Are you beautiful goddesses, oh magic? What do you usually do when you're brushing your teeth? You're doing something really mundane. Yeah, worry. Yeah, mindfulness. Yay, Terry. Yeah. Okay. If we start to notice in the places where we do habitual things, and instead of thinking what's the next step, instead of worrying, instead of thinking about what we did wrong, yeah, you could sing. That's good. To play with, how do I bring the magic back? How do I bring my presence and a sense of magic into this action? And how would that feel different? When you make your coffee in the morning or your tea, when you're walking to something, to do something, play with in all of these little in-between habitual places, calling in magic, and see what happens. See how things become more sparkly just from that intent, just from that willingness. Good. Okay, so now I'm going to magically walk to my gate. Yay. And I will see you all hopefully tomorrow. If you can join in live, we'll also be sharing all the recordings as well. And I'm passing you on to Serena, who is one of the Witchy Warrior Goddess mentors. And do you want to, should we make Laura co-host so that she can bring people in? Do you mind? Is that good? Okay. Perfect. La 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 la. Got it. And then Serena, I'll make you host.
I was gonna say, can you give me all the power, Heather Ash? The magical power.
Let me give you all the power. I'll give you all the magical power that Zoom has to offer. Okay, give me a second, let me find you. No. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Awesomeness. All right. Mwah. Much love to each of you. And thanks for being part of the Warrior Goddess Witchy Challenge. It's so fun to be in this journey with you. Don't forget to hashtag Warrior Goddess Witchy. I've been reading all the posts that come through on Instagram, and I'll be checking Facebook. And we'll see you tomorrow, hopefully. Thanks, Serena.
Thanks, Heather Ash. Have a good flight.
Thank you.
Hey, everyone. This is one of my favorite topics, and so I'm super excited to pick up here. One of the most magical things is that I've been doing this for a really long time. So I started practicing making things witchy and magical at a really young age, because my dad in particular wanted us to infuse everything with wonder and magic. And so he would, read bedtime stories, but then we would like act them out and like have this mundane task of like reading bedtime stories, and they would turn into these like elaborate journeys that would then lull me to sleep. And then I would have these amazing dreams, and I get to like wake up and share about them in the morning. And so, if you're a parent and you're like, I don't know how to make bedtime fun, you could turn it into a whole theater experience with your wee ones, so that something that is rote that we do, habitually, and we have to do, and sometimes we drag our feet to do it, that you can infuse a little bit of wonder and playfulness into that aspect. And it made it so that I wanted to go to sleep. Like I was excited at the end of story time to be able to like go into this world that we just created. So how fun. Questions, comments, shares about what Heather Ash is touching on. And then I have some stories and things to share with all of you about my experience with this as well. Anything stirring? Oz, like the Wizard of Oz? That's fun. Awesome. So when we're feeling into how to bring magical thinking about how to make our lives more magical, this opportunity to look at our life and to really be in deep relationship with it. So we have this opportunity to turn everything into something magical, something that's a ritual. I had an experience when I guess it was shortly after I started studying with Heather Ash, where I did this really big, like, psychodrama work, and then went and cooked immediately afterwards. And the practitioner that I was with was like, how did you do that? Like, how did you go from this really big ceremonial piece of work and like psychodrama therapy experiential work into cooking for this group of people? And I said, oh, well, all of it's ritual to me. And then I just like bebopped around and moved on. And at the time, I didn't think anything of it. It just seemed like another part of my world. And I found as I continued on my path and on this journey that it was a real gift that I was able to harness that as a skill, that I was able to turn these things that are jobs or work or whatever into something that felt like I was connected to something bigger than myself, that I was connected to my community, that I was connected to the divine in some way, that this wasn't just a thing that I was doing, that there was a love and a devotion to it. And it was really powerful to have someone reflect that and like to open up and be like, oh yeah, that is a thing. And so as we move through our lives, we can get trapped in this place of just feeling like everything is the same, or everything is just like meh. And we can lose touch with the wild part of ourselves and the witchy part of ourselves that brings in that playfulness, that brings in that super sparkly, powerful part of ourselves, and the way that we can infuse everything with a little bit of magic if we try. And it can be things that making your bed, that could become a ritual where you're clearing out the stuff from the day before or the night before or whatever, and then lovely making it, and I don't know, maybe sprinkling rose petals on top of it, and blessing your bed so that when you come later on that day, you're like, oh my gosh, what a lovely surprise. Because oftentimes we'll move through our day and we'll forget like little touches that we might have. And so you could come back to your bed every day and have, you know, flower petals on it ready to greet you for your next sleeping session. Could be like a fun thing to do. Um, other ideas of things are to just look around at your day-to-day activities and see what's a small place that doesn't take a ton of extra work, that could be something that I really enjoy, or that can infuse something that you don't particularly like with something that's delightful. Heather Ash was talking about coffee and tea, and like making that in a witchy way. One of the things that I have worked on is that the truth is I really like to slowly make my coffee. I don't want a quick coffee solution, even though it is efficient. I want my coffee to be a particular way. And so I've started practicing making my coffee really slowly, because I like the slow pour over kind of coffee, and I like freshly ground beans. And so I'll talk with my coffee beans and I'll whisper sweet little um, sweet nothings into my coffee beans and put them into the coffee beaner, and then like make the ground up the coffee. And I just think about that being like little seeds that are popping open with magic of the things that I've wanted. And then putting it into my um, little cone part of my coffee pour over thing. And while the water's boiling, I'm like blessing the water, and then I slowly pour the water, and then I wait. And in the waiting place, sometimes I'll chant or I'll sing. And at the end of this entire process, I have this beautiful cup of coffee that feels like it's nourishing me, that feels like it's giving me life in a new way. And I feel connected to it. And it's a really sweet way for me to start my day. That's not like, oh, let me just throw a K cup in and like pull the little thing down and then like haphazardly throw some creamer in it and like walk off. I also drink out of really pretty mugs or mason jars that I just adore. And there's this beauty in that. And it's also really magical. There's something about being with the preciousness of the coffee beans, and the preciousness of the water, and the preciousness of the, oftentimes I'll use some combination of half and half and like almond milk or oat milk, and I'll froth it. And I love milk froth. It makes me so happy. And a little dusting of cinnamon or cocoa on top, like just, oh my gosh. And so, oh, and I just thought about like edible glitter. Ooh, that would be fun. Anyways, so I spend these like moments with something like coffee, and to allow that to bring in this like beautiful, opportunity for me. I also do this when I'm cooking. So for those of you who've been up to Warrior Heart Ranch, you've likely experienced my cooking, which is very like choose your own adventure. And what it is that I have sets of ingredients, and I know more or less what I'm going to cook. But there's not really like a recipe that goes with it. So I will talk with my ingredients, and I will feel into my intuition and be like, what wants to come here? I'll also use my senses. So using your senses is a great way to open up to your magic and connect you to things. So I'll look for different color variations. I'll smell things and I'll be like, and I'll take a big whiff and then I'll smell and I'll be like, oh, it needs a little bit more. And then I'll trust my intuition of what it needs more of from the smell of it. And then at some point while I'm stirring it and smelling it, I'll be like, oh, I think that's the right smell. And then I'll taste it. And then I allow that to settle in. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I do think it needs a little bit more of this or that. And so I bring all these ingredients together in a variety of ways, in whatever ways I moved that day. And it helps allow the magic to come into this mundane task of making dinner. Or making breakfast or whatever the thing is. And there are times where we can just do mundane tasks and, they're fine. But there's a beauty in being able to weave in little tiny things that will make things feel a little bit more magical, that will make them feel like we have choice in this world, which we do in a lot of ways, and that we have power. And being able to just shift our perspective slightly in this way can really help us do that. Okay, I'm going to check the chat for a second because there's a flurry of things happening over there. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have. Scroll up. I feel like I go in and out of magic ways. I'm here to get back into that space. Oh, beautiful, Joanne. So and one of the things that we teach in Warrior Goddess a lot is that things move in cycles. And so we have cycles where we're in the fullness of that magic, where we're really connected to the magic of everything. And then there might be times where we're a little bit more dormant. And I think things like the Warrior Goddess Witchy Challenge is a great way for us to get reconnected and reignited to all of the magic. And then you just start small and then see how it works and track it. I love that. Karen writes, generational trauma, witch wound. My mission and intention is to break that cycle for myself and for my daughter. I'm also just now starting an outdoor nature play-based preschool. I plan to infuse the healing of magic and wonder and wander. Oh, I love that. Into every moment. Yes. And so those are beautiful ways to take things like a school experience and take it from this mundane task into an outdoor play experience. That's totally magical. Like, that's so amazing. Yes. Flower petals on the bed. Zaza, love the awareness that it's funner, more sparkling when I play with magic and ritual. I have choice to let go of the hard stuff that happens in life. I'm a magical mama, love of a being, and all that I experience is a part of me, and it doesn't need to define me. I'm greater than all of the stories I have lived. Yes, 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 yes. Jennifer, I've been drinking mushroom adaptogen tea lately with maple syrup and coconut milk. It always feels like a ritual. Yes, that sounds like a ritual. How yummy. I used to avoid doing dishes, but I think of uniting with the water element and I listen to music or audiobooks. Yes, dishes are one of the things that I definitely try to infuse magic into because I have an attitude about them. I don't like doing them. I love cooking, but the dish cleaning part of it is just not fun for me. And so any way that we can infuse it, and there's times where you can like light a candle and infuse your dishwashing by that, like lighting a candle and setting that. You can also, imagine that it's cleaning up all of the gunk from your life, right? Especially the stuff that gets like caked on. Like, what if we imagined that we're like scraping the gunk out of our lives and then watching it go into the garbage disposal? Like the amount of satisfaction that would come from flipping on that garbage disposal, like if you allied with your garbage disposal as a magical tool, and allowed it to like grind up all the things, or the compost in your garden, or all of those things. How exciting. Edible glitter, what's it made out of? I don't know what it's made out of, but I know that they put it on like wedding cakes and stuff. There's some sort of edible glitter. My guess is that it's just sugar that they've dyed. But I don't actually know. I'd have to find it. It's all that I am the queen of cleaning the toilets in my house, and I think I need to make myself a crown. What if you had a special crown that you wore to clean your house? Oh, I buy special cleaning products that smell so good to me. I'm really glad I have a toilet. This is a big change for me because I held annoyance, resentment, even anger, and pity. Poor me. I'm the only one who cleans the toilet. Now it's a fun part of the morning. Oh my gosh, Saza, I love that so much. What a beautiful, beautiful ritual and way to make that magical. And that place, right? Like I'm just like imagining like a little crown on your head, and I like, is it a flower crown or a crystal crown? And or a metal crown, like all the things. And to bring this way of taking something that was annoying, that you had resentment about, right? That was like feeding that victim part of yourself, and instead be like, okay, I'm going to take ownership and responsibility of the power that I have when I clean the toilet. And how do we make this magical? Get a crown, put on music, make it a big production that feels good and makes it fun. I'm thinking about Mary Poppins, and a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down, right? Like, and the cleaning song that she has, and like that whole thing. There's very lovely ways that we can take these things that we have to do. Like we have to wash dishes if we're gonna make dishes in the world. We can't just keep throwing out the good china, right? And so how do we work with that? Well, let's get creative and find a way to make it fun. One of my favorite things with my nibblings, my brother's kids, when they were growing up, is they hated, um, you know, just mealtime was a fight about things. And so I started making rainbow plates. And so I would do my best every night to have as many colors on their plate as possible. And then that made it fun. I would buy things like rainbow cauliflower, and they would get so excited because their food looked fun and it looked magical. And I would make up, all sorts of stories about the fairies blessing them or whatever. And so to allow that to happen. So it's so fun. Susan, I have a lot of projects I want to complete, but I feel blocked, so I don't. Why is that? It's very frustrating and depressing. Yeah, so there's so many reasons that we can feel blocked around certain projects. And so one of the things that we can do with ritual and ceremony to make things a little bit more magical is to take a task that you've been avoiding. And we talk a little bit about this in our program Journey of the 9 Moons. There's a whole section on what Arash teaches around eating the frog. And I can't remember where that teaching comes from, but eating the frog is around doing the task that you've been avoiding. It's unpleasant. It might even suck for a little bit, but after you do it, you feel accomplished because you ate the frog. And when's the best time to eat a frog? First thing in the morning. And so to allow yourself to go through the hard task first thing in the morning. And what I used to do, and what I still do, is that there's one particular task that I have to do every week. And I don't know why I dread it. There's nothing big about it, but it just feels like it takes all this extra energy. I constantly feel blocked around it. And so what I started doing was making hot water with lemon, doing my frog task, and then slowly making my coffee. because I knew that if I waited until after I slowly made my coffee, I'd get even grumpier about the whole thing. And so what has helped is just like as soon as I wake up and I'm like ready to go to work, as I do whatever the hard thing is that I have to do first. And then the rest of the day actually opens up. And so what we know is that when folks have any sort of block or resistance to a particular task, is that if they can either break that task into small pieces, and get like a few small pieces out of the way, or if they can tackle a piece of that task in some way first thing, is that it then creates the clarity that there's more space available because you've done part of the thing, and the clarity that you can then do the next piece of it or knock it out completely, and then you can move to your next hard task, or you can save your next hard task for the next day, depending on how you're working with your schedules and that sort of thing. But there's this beauty in when we're working with the things that we're grumpy about or resentful about and we're blocked around, if we can get some momentum, it will create more momentum. What is it? An object in motion stays in motion. So once you get started on the hard things, they'll build and sort of domino effect so you can do more hard things or more challenging things. And oftentimes once you get through a couple of the blocked things, then it's not even a block anymore because you've gained enough energy at that point to keep going. Oftentimes it's the getting started piece, and you can keep feeling this like depressive, oppressive sort of downing energy when you get frustrated and then you don't complete the task and then you end up depressed, and then the next day happens and you're still in the same cycle. And like as long as you're not able to, or you're not moving through those tasks, they'll just keep compounding, which then makes you feel worse, right? And so have a dance party while you're doing the task, or reward yourself in some way. I use the Pomodoro technique a lot, which I learned in our Journey of the 9 Moons program. And that's to work for a chunk of time and then take a 5-minute break, and then work for a chunk of time and then take a 5-minute break. And what that does is it helps us go in 100% with our focus. Imagine that all of your magical attention, all of your power is focused on this one task for 20 or 25 minutes. And then you get to take a 5-minute break, run around outside, put on some music, do, whatever else. And then you come back to either the same task or a different task. And those little things can help move you forward in whatever it is that you're wanting to work with. So hopefully that's helpful. Alexia, when I cook, I usually never have a recipe and can never duplicate it, LL, because it's always intuitively prepped with magic. Exactly. I like folks will be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. How did you make this? And I'm like, well, I had this set of ingredients, more or less. And they'll be like, oh, and what measurements? And I'm like, a handful-ish, maybe a pinch of this, maybe a little dab of that. And I'm like, I don't know. It was something like that. And I just tell people to trust their intuition, and just to see. And I don't bake. So I've heard that this doesn't work with baking. But the cooking part of it, it's actually oftentimes really forgiving, which is also fun. So here's the other thing about magical thinking. When you get into that place of magical thinking and you're not taking whatever it is that you're creating, you're simultaneously taking it very seriously and also not seriously, is that if you make a mistake, like if you make this thing, like a soup or something, and it doesn't taste great, okay, it was a failed experiment. That's it. We'll try something else next time, or we'll get like, we'll make something else. And so there's this way in which you can bring your attention 100% into something, making it magical all along the way. And then maybe it doesn't turn out. Okay, it's not the end of the world most of the time. Most of the time it's just like, okay, that wasn't the best soup I've made. Next time I want to try this instead. Or maybe add some more salt or cheese, because oftentimes that will like fix whatever the problem is. But to have some like levity about whatever the creation is, whatever it is that you're conjuring, to allow yourself to have, a wonder around it. Terry, when I do dishes, I remember the tasty food that was on the plate. Oh, that's a lovely reframe. That's so much. Tammy, do a shower chant along the lines of water, cleanse me, take away debris, all that does not serve me. Doubt, take away its clout, etc. And right before I turn off the water, I am cleansed, I am nourished, I am refreshed. Woo! Way to go, Tammy. That's so fun. Jennifer, I call my silver strands my crown. Oh, that's lovely. I love that. Elsa, I love the idea of a crown when cleaning because I do not like to clean, but I love a clean home. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, and that's one of the other things about magical thinking is if you can imagine journeying yourself to the end of the task, how are you going to feel when you get to the end of that task? And then you reverse engineer it. Okay, I want to feel elated and refreshed and spacious after cleaning my closet. Okay, now how do I make the cleaning my closet fun? How do I make it lead me to elation, to feeling elated? How do I create, how do I feel spacious on the other side? Oh, well, I take stuff out. I create space physically, like actually create it, right? And so that's also a fun way to work with our magical thinking, is to allow ourselves to dream into the future of, at the end of this task, how do I want to feel? And to bring that in. Rachel, the hardest part of the journey is the first step. Yep. Oftentimes that first little step is the thing that really takes a ton of energy. And then once we've done that, we can take the next one. Plus, it's also fun to do it in community, right? When we get to do our tasks in community. One of the fun things that I've done with some communities in the past is this thing called co-working. So especially during the height of the pandemic, when we were all quarantined, we would get on Zoom calls together and work together. And so I would light a candle or incense, and then I would go into work with, usually 4 or 5 other humans, and we'd all get on Zoom and we'd be doing our task. And then we would take 5 or 10-minute breaks together, and we would, dance or sing or talk with each other for a few minutes, go get a snack, do show and tell with like what snack we were eating that day or what we were drinking, and then go back into our task. But I would keep that candle lit the entire time I was doing doing my work tasks. And to do so in community helped weave it together, and it felt like we were creating something together, even if we were all working on our own separate tasks, which is fun. Jennifer, sometimes if it's a laborious task, I set a timer and take dance breaks on the in-between time. Yes, exactly. Angela, when I was a stay-at-home mom and housework became overwhelming for me, I started using the timer method, and I would set timers 30 to 60 minutes. It gave my goal to work towards, and then for the next 30 minutes, I could do what I wanted, like a reward. After a while, the timer would go off, and I was feeling so accomplished with what I'd gotten done that I just kept going and was often surprised at the end with how much I had gotten done in how little amount of time. Yes. What I found in my experience is that tasks become, when you break them into smaller chunks or when you set a timer, it focuses you because you're like, oh, I have to do this thing. And it will oftentimes, you'd be surprised how much actually gets done, which is really powerful. I love that. Cheryl, my mother's sharing recipes. How much, Mom? Just enough, not too much, a nice amount. Cook for how long? Till it's done, don't overcook, etc. I love that, Cheryl. Yeah, I mean, that's essentially, I'm like, I don't know, cook it until it's done. Ask the food, are you done yet? And then there's things like, if you're making chicken, make sure it's not pink anymore. Make sure that it's white or it shreds or like whatever, it's such a fun thing. Susan, the projects I avoid aren't chores. They're projects, crafts I mentally think of, a vague finished project. But like you said, there's resistance. When I meditate on it, nothing comes to the surface. Projects that are 10 years old, it's extreme fear of failure or success. Oh, yes. Okay, so let's talk about this in our last few minutes. There are things that we put our energy into that sometimes we need to pull our energy out of. And what happens, especially if we have projects that are like 10 years old, is that they're holding stagnant energy at that point. Or they're like, it's like a lake that's been sitting too long, or a pond that's been sitting too long. And so oftentimes the best way to move forward with those things is to sit with each of those projects and decide, am I going to move forward with this, or is it time to let this go? And that can be really challenging for some folks. They're like, but I started the project, I have to finish it. No, you don't. No, you don't. And if you're like, but I do, you can. And you can try to make it more fun, but you can also say, thank you so much for keeping me occupied or helping me get through a tough time. An example I have of this is a quilt that I started, gosh, probably 10 years ago now. I was so gung-ho about starting this quilt, and I sewed the entire the back of it together, and I had or no, the front of it. I had all these squares and I like cut it out and I sewed it all. And so I had the front, and then it came to the batting part and like putting the fluffy stuff on the other side, and I just like, that stalled me. And when I was moving about 6 months ago, I found my whole like quilt top and all the pieces, and I sat with it and I was like, you know what? The truth is, I'm just not going to finish this project. And I could take all of the energy, because it was like taking up space in my head of like how to do it and where to get a quilting machine, like all the things. And I was like, you know what? I'm just done with this project. And there was for a moment, there was a piece of me that felt like a failure. Like, oh, I didn't finish my first quilt. And then there's this other part that was like, but I can always pick up another quilt if I want to make another first quilt. And I can just start over. And so what happens is when we have projects that we've started and not finished, is that they continue to take up energetic space. And sometimes they take up physical space. And of course, we feel frustrated when those things don't get done, because now they're taking up space in our lives. And so sometimes we just have to go through and clean out those old things that we're not moving on. And it doesn't mean that you'll never come back to it or you can't try again, but it means that sometimes you don't have to finish the thing that you started 10 years ago. And this can be anything. Jobs. You don't have to finish a job just because you started it. You might get 2 weeks into a job and be like, this isn't for me. Okay, so don't do it. Find a new one. And so I am a huge proponent of quitting things if they're not serving you and they're not making you happy. If the project is something that you really want to finish it, then carve out some time and put it on your schedule. And then like follow through with the thing and make it fun, like bring in something that makes it magical, and also clean things out. It's okay, for sure. A-list cheese fixes everything. It does fix a lot of things. Mm-mm-mm. Cheryl, if a list of unpleasant things, I now start with easiest and work my way up. It builds success and goes better. Ooh, that's lovely. How fun. Terry, I'm storing closets as my closet rod broke. I repaired it and it is freeing to take everything out and give, save, store, and use for new rags and lighten my load of what I am not using now. Very liberating doing it in segments as I glued my closet wooden rods back. Yeah. And there can be, a real beauty in taking things like that and just like clearing them out and just seeing what happens. Lori, my daughter magically asked me to meet up with her just as I'd been thinking about her. I've got to go. I appreciate you. Bye, Lori. Have fun. Angela, nope, we did that one. That was a reply. Just kidding. Laura, online co-working has been helpful for me. I've worked with a community called Cave Day. Ooh, that sounds fun. Mm-mm-mm. When I have an overwhelming project I've been putting off, I'll ask one of my adult children to help me. Sometimes a fresh pair of eyes makes things go faster. Yes, absolutely. So bringing in other people's perspectives can help us with the task at hand. So if you have a task that is feeling really big, if it feels daunting, oftentimes having a friend or a beloved or a stranger come in and help you look at it can absolutely change the world. Tammy, I went through a tote of craft supplies and undone or unfinished crafts and got rid of much. One unfinished wooden box, which I was going to decoupage, went to a young girl via Buy Nothing. She recently immigrated, had nothing, and was thrilled to send me a photo of the box holding her beads and trinkets. Oh, how lovely is that? And how magical, right? Angela, it's like all of our habits and responses, we're allowed to change them. They served us at the time, but they no longer serve us. It's okay to move on with the knowledge and wisdom of comfort it gave us when it did serve us. Exactly. So our invitation for today and the coming days is to find some things in your life that you want to change up, that are tasks that you do regularly, that you can add a little magic to, that you can bring in some threads of the elements, or bring in something that really lights you up, that you adore, that you love. If there's, flowers that you like, can you infuse them into a bath or on your bed, or make an altar? So when you first walk into your home, that, you're greeted with this thing. Like, there's these little tiny things that we can do. If there's scents that you have, can you add that scent to something? I love to play with my scents with my laundry detergent. So I have not unscented laundry detergent, and I have a plethora of essential oils that sit on top of my washing machine. And when I go to wash my clothes, I take sniffs of like which essential oils I want to use, or I'll close my eyes and like go like this, and I'll just grab a few and I make a little mixture, and then it goes into the wash. And so every time I'm like surprised by what the clothes are going to smell like when they come out, but it feels very magical and witchy, right? So what a beautiful option. Awesome. Okay, loves. Well, we're out of time today, but we hope that you'll join us tomorrow for the second of our series of 3. I'm like, are there 4? I think there's 3 webinars. And so Heather Ash will have landed in Phoenix. I'm gonna pick her up in a few hours when she lands here, and we will tune in to y'all tomorrow. So thank you so much for joining me. Same Zoom link tomorrow at 8 a.m. Pacific, and we'll talk to y'all later. Bye, beloveds.